Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We're actually gonna do it this time. I've bought this guitar 3 times, and the first time is because I just ran out of time. I couldn't review it, I just ended up selling it, and I told you guys I'd get it later on. The second time, from the factory, they installed incorrect pickups, so it's like, well, that review and demo wouldn't do people much good, but it was kind of a good, funny laugh. And basically, nobody knows why that guitar left the factory with the incorrect pickups. So, the guitar that we are talking about is the Gibson 70s Flying V. It was a new installation within the Gibson original collection about a year or so ago. So they introduced the 70s Flying V and the 70s Explorer, and then this year we just reviewed the 70s Deluxe. So it appears that they're going to keep rolling out 70s models. Unfortunately, they don't get all the specs right. They're more so just, vague tributes, but let's go ahead and check this guy out today. So inside here, we've got the correct pickups this time. At least they look correct anyways. So these guys, they cost $1,999 at the store, and basically they cannot keep up production with these guys. They sell out too fast. Finding a brand new one, even a year after their release, is a little bit difficult. Occasionally you'll get lucky and you'll find a dealer that has one, but other times you're gonna have to wait, I think, a couple of months on a pre-order, sometimes even more. I think this one, what are we waiting, like 2 or 3 months? And before that, I think I was waiting 6 months or so from a dealer. But what makes this different from a regular style Flying V is, it's 70s influenced in the fact that they took like popular modifications of the 70s and introduced it to here. So things like the uncovered humbuckers, the actual humbucker rings on top of the pickguard, it's kind of redundant. You don't necessarily need them. But people like KK Downing really made this look synonymous with the 70s. He's known for having his medallion Flying V, and he had that installed on those. So a lot of people would make that modification. Now, just like the Deluxe, as far as 70s specs, not so much. We don't have a volute. They don't have the exact headstock shape. This is more so still the 67 style. Whereas the 70s, they're very rounded. They're very iconic looking, but they didn't choose to do that. And normally they would have pickup covers. So once again, this is more so influenced off of a modified one. But you will see that we do have binding along the fretboard. So that makes it a little different as compared to a regular 67 styled Flying V.
It's kind of peculiar because most 70s Flying Vs did not have binding, but there was a limited edition run of 25 done with block inlays and binding that were in white. So perhaps Gibson was trying to pay tribute to that, since we've got the same white finish with matching headstock. Kind of hard to tell.
So I'm not going to take the time to, nitpick this one, because I think we get it. The 70s inspired ones, they're not necessarily trying to be reissues. They're just, kind of taking like one bit or piece and kind of transforming the regular ones that they make. But that's the thing about 70s Flying Vs. They're some of my favorite. At least they kind of got the fretboard joining to the body right. You see how those things stick up? That's how the 70s Flying Vs are. And the originals are really some of my favorite playing guitars. They're so resonant. Yeah, I'm sure once we tune this guy up, he'll be pretty good. I can kind of feel that resonance though, so I think there is something how these guys are built that makes them interesting. But as far as our case candy goes, let's go ahead and check this out. Looks like this particular case is Costa Rican made. We get our baby photo, our inspection checklist, the strap. Looks like case keys, and all the usual stuff, like the baggie to keep all this stuff in, polished cloth, Gibson multi-tool, those are always helpful, owner's manual, warranty information. So without any further ado, let's finally throw one of these guys on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs.
Inside the 70s Flying V, let's go ahead and take a look under the hood. So here's what our routes look like. Nothing too fancy going on here, but you can see some sort of markings. It looks like it says CW, maybe for classic white. And then I can't quite make out what that's reading, but something for 70s style Flying V, I would imagine. But these two cavities are connected with this wire channel. That way the wire can actually go through there and you can install the pickguard down over top of that. And then from there it channels into this. But I found that kind of interesting, how there's actually a raised piece of wood right there, and then they just route that down a little bit further for your output jack. But some good information to note, the pickguard itself is actually installed using these screws into the body, but so are the pickup springs. So I was thinking I could just take the outside screws and then these should just lift up, but no, those don't just secure to the pickguard, they also secure to the guitar itself. But the correct pickups for these are the Rhythm 70s V in the neck and a Lead 70s V in the bridge. These are just uncovered black pickups. You could technically put covers on them if you wanted to. If you really wanted to make this look more like a traditional Flying V, all you'd have to do is replace the pickguard and then install these normally. Because a regular Flying V would not have this cutout right there. And then you could mount the springs to it, and then it would look more traditional once you put the covers on it. But I believe the reason why guys modified these was to get the pickup higher. That way they could get more output. Because you got guys like Michael Schenker that would also use these things. But I'm really curious to see what these read on the multimeter, because in the 70s they were using T-top pickups and they were not hot at all. Those were like 7.5. So let's see what we've got going on here. We've got hot rodded pickups, 14.25. That's hot in the bridge. Our neck pickup, even hotter, 15.66. So yeah, this is definitely going after a hot rodded 70s Flying V. And in the middle, 7.46. So if you like scorching hot stuff, you're going to like this guitar. Those are very similar to Dirty Fingers pickup reading. So we'll have to hear those in a minute. But instead of an ABR1 bridge or even the faux BR1, they utilize this. So maybe that's why on the Deluxe they used the Nashville style, because that's what they're using for the original collection 70 style. We might have solved that mystery today. It's branded API for Advanced Plating Incorporated. It is lightweight aluminum, and it utilizes studs. Now, unfortunately, in order to take your pickguard off, you also have to take these things out because they're not quite big enough. Same thing going on with the bridge, exact same company, lightweight aluminum. And as labeled on our knobs, we have a volume for each pickup and a master tone, 3-way toggle switch down here with our output jack located on the front. It would have been nice to have seen witch hat knobs put on here, because that's what a lot of 70s Flying Vs have. So once again, they really blended mainly 67 specs on this thing. I would really like to see them come out with a more classic 70s V in the future. You know, bring back the tobacco sunburst finish. But maybe they're just kind of saving that for the custom shop jobs, because sometimes they will do more appropriate 70s reissue ones. But I think they could sell a bunch of these things if they would bring back the classic colors that people mainly know these for. You know, the naturals, the tobacco sunbursts, maybe even do a small limited edition silver burst V, but I guess technically Adam Jones is coming out with one of those eventually. But it is a mahogany body. How many pieces? I can't really tell because it's a solid finish. And we do have a mahogany neck, but I do want to talk about some QC things. So this is brand new direct from Gibson, and I'm kind of let down. It looks like these frets were not finally polished. Like, I could just tell by the strings scratching against it that these were not as, you know, nice and shiny and smooth as they could be. So I wanted to leave this alone just to kind of show you guys that before I do my steel wool job and condition the fretboard. So I was kind of let down needing immediate maintenance on a $2,000 instrument. Like the Epiphones, yeah, I get it. But something like this, I feel like it should have got, you know, a little bit more attention before it left the factory. I remember my first Flying V actually had like a chip in the finish down here or something. Now the second one I don't remember doing a QC thing on, but my third one I'm seeing a lot of clear coat wear. Like maybe when they were doing the frets they accidentally caught it or something, but unfortunately I feel like that should have been like touched up at the factory. And you can see some additional roughness right here along the edge of the binding. Now thankfully this is mainly on the side that you don't see. And does this affect playability? No, but you know, we're doing a condition rundown segment in QC, so I thought I'd let you know about it. This is the before and after. This one is just lightly polished, whereas this one, this is how it came directly from the factory. Now that we've got those frets all polished up in the fretboard condition, that's looking pretty good now. The only other QC things I'm noticing is it looks like whoever's making their plastics really isn't taking the time to scrape those edges to make them nice and clean. You can see a lot of chatter marks on them. As far as the face of the headstock goes, the only Gibson branding is actually on the truss rod cover right here. And then you have your truss rod in here if you need to use it. Grover tuners, strangely enough. Usually you'd have some sort of a Kluson style. Let's go ahead and grab these neck dimensions before we flip over to the back side. So our nut measures about 1.69 inches, and by the 12th it increases to 2.08. First fret neck depth 0.86 and 0.92 by the 12th. Kind of an interesting neck profile on this thing, so definitely C-shaped, but up towards the 12th it really kind of flattens out, whereas it's pretty rounded towards the first fret. Just like a vintage V, the pickguards are prone to cracking. I believe that's my fault though, I over-tightened the screw. Moving on to the backside here, we don't have too much going on. No back plates because it's top routed, but you can see your strap button is located down here, and the other one is at the base of the neck. Now, an original 70s Flying V, it would have a 3-piece mahogany neck. These guys never switched over to maple, even during the maple neck era, but they would have a volute. So if Gibson could do anything to make the 70s collection better that they're doing here, at least give these things a volute when necessary. Because I get, they're not doing exact reissues, but come on, at least get the most iconic part. And this is probably a 1-piece mahogany neck instead of being 3 pieces, but yeah, whatever. You can see your Made in USA stamp right here, and the serial number of this one dates it to late 2020. I actually had somebody ask me, I just got this guitar from Sweetwater, but it has a late 2020 serial number. Am I being ripped off? No, remember, this is just when the neck was stamped, not necessarily when the whole guitar was completed. So this was brand new as of like a week or so ago as far as getting them out the door, but it does have a later production. But I do want to tell you guys, be careful. You see this impression? That's from me putting a clip-on tuner on it. This is such a soft finish yet, it hasn't like fully cured. I saw up here there was like a small impression, so I tried to scrape it away, and then just my nail, it's not even super sharp or anything, ended up scratching the finish. It's like, geez, this is a really soft finish yet. So fresh off of the factory floor, that's for sure. But all said and done, this thing weighs about 7.5 pounds, 7 pounds, 7.9 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how these pickups sound. Okay, let's go ahead and run through these tones. So what I'm finding are these pickups are extremely hot, like too hot for the clean channel. What I've done is I've rolled the volumes down to 7. So I'll just kind of compare that for you, starting with our bridge pickup. Here's what it's like at 7. Roll that up to about a 9. The way. Now we'll switch over to our neck position. We'll do the same thing. Start at about 7. Now we'll try that middle position. So kind of interesting sounding pickups. interesting Flying V. It almost sounds a little bit darker than most pickups. Like normally when I have distortion on, I expect it to be like very clear and bright, but this one, it still has a little bit of darkness to it. Like it almost sounds like the tones rolled off just a little bit on a regular guitar. Pretty much the same goes for that neck pickup too. So what are my final thoughts on the Gibson 70s Flying V now that I've actually sat down with one, played it for a little bit? Is it as good as an original 70s Flying V? No, it's nowhere close, but I don't think this is really even trying to be that. It's not a formal reissue. It's got some of the elements, like a little bit of the construction with the neck going on, but it just doesn't feel quite as lightweight as the ones that I've had from the 70s. It's still very resonant, but not quite as resonant as those. So maybe that's just something as the guitar ages that it'll get better in that aspect. However, I think if you're looking for more of like a modern rocker's guitar, I think that's who this is for. So if you're looking for something a little bit more modern with hot pickups, I would suggest this. But if you're going into it thinking it's gonna be just like that 70s Flying V I used to own, probably not. It is a good guitar at $19.99, but it's not too much different from a regular Alpine white one that you might find from the 90s, as well as the early 2000s in the 67 style. But in many ways, I would actually say this thing is better spec'd. Those guitars had hot pickup stock too, but this one gets binding on the fretboard and it gets the matching headstock. So I think I understand why these things cannot stay in stock is because there's always been a demand for a white Flying V. This one is actually a really good value when compared to used value examples. So if you've been in the market for a really cool looking Flying V, this is definitely something to consider. An original 70s Flying V that hasn't been repaired, it's at least going to be double this. So you can't really compare them apples to oranges. Would I personally buy one of these? Probably not. It wasn't necessarily my guitar. I prefer more traditional humbuckers, but just because I didn't fall in love with this guitar, that doesn't mean you won't. So maybe try one out at a dealer, and I hope this video helped you understand this guitar a bit better and make an informed decision on if you would wish to purchase one on your own. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.